The year is 2002, and I am late. I've never played a Pokemon game before. No amount of PlayStation or NES prepared me. Pokemon Crystal was a major part of my early gaming interests alongside my first handheld console. For over a year, I played on a bone stock Indigo Game Boy Advance alongside my brothers, who were gifted White and Glacier Advances with corresponding copies of Gold and Silver before I finally landed on Pokemon Ruby. If Crystal was a major part of my childhood, Ruby was fundamental. I took my advance and copy of Ruby on every road trip, plane flight, even buying a matching travel case. Played extensively over school breaks. Played it more than even all of my GameCube games combined. To say I was hooked would be a gross understatement. As I grew up, I stuck with third generation, skipping the fourth and fifth ones entirely in favor of Colosseum and XD. For years, I would repeatedly trade Pokemon off of Ruby only to reset it and choose another starter, essentially treating XD as my own pseudo box. So imagine my surprise when I learned about Pokemon Bank, a place where I could safely send my Pokemon to when I rejoined the franchise for Omega Ruby after heading off to university. I was enthralled with Bank and my albeit late return to Generation 6. However, I barely beat Pokemon Moon before I had to focus on courses. During school, many competing interests would begin to prop up as well. Not only the opportunity at a career, but hobbies such as photography, music production, streaming, and even Magic the Gathering. In fact, I found myself often playing Omega Ruby on the side while moderating for streamers during semester breaks, even traveling to TwitchCon. It was during these years that a dream began to cultivate within me, born of inspiration from another creator's series, By Release. I was beginning to realize that even though Pokemon had become this franchise behemoth, not many people in my circle had ever played the games, nor experienced the stories. Alongside my growing experience in streaming, I believe that the ability to share one of my favorite franchises, in chronological order, could be entertaining. The initial plan was to use genuine hardware and transfer methods to build a living dex, hunt shinies, and showcase old events using event injection or DNS exploits where necessary. Don't get me wrong, I knew that this was going to take at least a year, if not two. Slowly, though, I began chipping away. I purchased copies of Diamond, Platinum, Soul Silver, Black, White, Black 2, and even an original DS that I would somehow figure out how to capture footage off of. But I got cold feet and shelved the project in favor of working on my career. And then everything changed when the pandemic swept across the city. Like many other fans, I foresaw that a great deal of time in my schedule would free up over the coming months, and I could fill that time with those games. So, I started grinding old school RuneScape. As some of you may have deduced, given that I skipped a couple of generations, I am not the most hardcore Pokemon fan. For nearly my entire life, RuneScape has been lurking in the background, fighting Pokemon for my ever-dwindling free time. I played RuneScape 2 on and off until the evolution of combat, while also playing Ruby. But in 2013, when Jagex pulled the reboot of a classic version, I was all in. I voted in the original poll and even played a little when the first servers were brought online. But school took priority, and it wasn't until 5 years later when it became a mainstay in the game rotation. I trained Slayer, opened Barrows chests, bossed with friends, and watched Settled progress through Swampletics. When work from home became the norm, I began to AFK various skills and participated in the original Trailblazer League, which showed me firsthand how vast the game had become since its launch. My passion for the game exploded. Shortly after the league, I made it a priority to obtain a max cape, going as far as to skip the next league and craft a personal spreadsheet to track my progress through other tools like Wise Old Man. And on August 30th, 2023, after committing 2 focused years to quests, diaries, minigames, and skilling, I completed my goal. But I was burnt, and it wasn't even the Max Cape's fault. I made sure to stagger the worst skills instead of leaving them for last. No, the burnout's roots ran far deeper. When I played the Trailblazer League, I had pushed myself so hard, even going on a few sleepless nights, in an attempt to place in Dragon Tier, amongst the best players in the game. However, in the final weeks, I had slipped to Rune tier and felt like I had failed myself and my friends as I was the last man standing in our group. Only 1 week after obtaining the Max Cape, Jagex announced Trailblazer Reloaded. My opportunity at redemption was here. I studied every announcement, every rumor, and given that I had just finished all the quests and diaries, I was prepared. Or so I thought. During this time, I had begun having instability issues with the PC. Crashes, freezes, drive failures, you name it. I bore through it for months, often forgoing community nights with other streamers, and eventually replaced the entire PC halfway through the new league. My pain was not in vain, though. On January 14th, I redeemed myself. I maxed my league's account, putting me over the points threshold for Dragon rank. I had finally done it. However, unrealized at the time, this 4-year journey had led to the biggest burnout of my life. I stopped playing video games entirely, instead opting to play Magic or work on my photography skills, especially astrophotography and wildlife with an emphasis on birds. I found myself renting lenses, cameras, visiting various zoos and preserves for nearly 2 years before I finally settled on a pairing I liked. It was during this time that I also began chasing the aurora, driving long hours in the country just to find a spot without light pollution in order to practice catching the Milky Way. I even took a couple of classes to confirm everything I had learned. Some days, I would just sit around on YouTube watching others complete projects similar to the one I had envisioned. Shout out to Johnstone, by the way. His series has been very entertaining. I waited because I thought I had time. And now, I am late. Again. I won't sugarcoat it. The announcement devastated me. Frankly, I am grieving, and I will be processing it long after the shutdown has occurred. However, I do bear the responsibility here for not starting the project. I'd begun testing capture footage of Ruby on my Game Boy player via a converter months before finishing the Max Cape, and I had even reached out to reputable capture card installers for both the DS and 3DS. I had 2024, 2025, and most of this year to get this project off the ground. I suspected that Bank wouldn't stay open forever after the release of Home. I even sought the perspective of other shiny hunters, and while the archival side of the community does do a great job providing avenues for feature replacement, the whole point of my dream was to use genuine games and transfers. I should have made it a priority. Instead, I let the burnout wash over me for far too long. But no longer. I would never forgive myself if I passed up this final chance to tackle some of the most important pieces in the Pokemon Home puzzle. I can always shiny hunt in newer generations, revisit the older titles in the future, and honestly have a pretty fun experience playing generations 3 through 5 even without Transporter. So, starting now, I am relaunching my stream and will be hunting the Switch unobtainable shinies. Today, I will begin by going through all my Game Boy and GameCube games as I await delivery of a DS capture card. After that, I will begin the hunts. I cannot commit to any hard schedule in the beginning, but as I get into the swing of things, I expect to be live from 7 p.m. Central on weeknights and noon on weekends, where a majority of my grinding time will reside. Over the last week, I watched a few videos and scoured the forums for as much data as possible. As some of you may already know, there are 8 pieces left. Mew, Celebi, Spinda, Type Null, Silvally, Poipole, Naganadel, and Partner Cap Pikachu. I bought a Japanese Emerald specifically for the Mew hunt 3 years ago. I have 2 copies of Crystal for Celebi. I can hunt Spinda on most anything. And I have all 4 copies of Sun, Moon, Ultra Sun, and Ultra Moon. But I will not be focusing on the Partner Cap Pikachu, since currently there is no distinct sprite, and that doesn't seem to be changing. I'm also not focusing on a Ribbon Master at the moment, since that could possibly take up too much time. I've never really been the biggest ribbon person ever, and I only briefly looked at the guide. However, I will be keeping an eye open for any Pokemon that I already own that have a large collection of ribbons that I could possibly use to complete the challenge. Finally, there's one other shiny hunt I would like to attempt. Jirachi. I have owned a Coliseum bonus disc for over 15 years now, and was one of the reasons I came up with this dream. I'm more than capable of going through Save Corrupting Purgatory to obtain it, much like obtaining a Max Cape. I'm just hoping it doesn't take me too long. So, without further ado, good luck to everyone in these final 6 months. May your hunts be quick, your ribbons easy, and I will see you all on the flip side.